So, Maria, I know this is your second book, Riding in Dignity. How did the idea come to you to write another book and why Riding in Dignity is that book?
Right. So the first one that I co-authored with Dominique Barbier was very much a book that here are two people that align on some of these principles. And back when we wrote it, while many people can work in that way, having the science behind it seemed to help because there were some technical things we were proposing that without the science behind it, it's less likely that people will be open to it. So we teamed together to put that book with the science around how to be with horses, the communion, and I was able to connect. There was a lot of cross fertilization, so I was able to connect with um, colleagues who were friends, who became friends over the years on things like heart variability and kind of this interspecial connection from an electrical perspective, electromagnetic perspective. So that was a book that was very much with kind of the science behind the connection. This book, Writing in Dignity, that is not with a co-author, I wrote it myself, was a little bit more of a personal journey, an extension of the alchemy of lightness, but more of a personal journey to it. So there's a lot of more of the kind of takeaways, philosophical takeaways that I think make it a little bit different, but at the same time, a continuation of the first book.
And when you were researching the book and deciding how to write it, how did you decide what pieces to include in the order that those came in?
Well, everything about the book, the entire book from front to back, if I had to sit down and say it, let's just put it this way and say, this would have been written maybe 5 years before, but every time I tried to say, okay, this is it, this is the final product, something told me no. So it's a very, very personal journey. If I had a publisher and editor who had given me a deadline, it would be a very different book. So was it a linear process? Absolutely not. And it wouldn't be the book it is today had I just released it 5 years ago. It would be a very different book. Um, when I started it, it was 5 years ago, probably just a year after the alchemy was finished. It started
Mhm.
to percolate because people were approaching me, students, um, people that had read it that were not necessarily students, but just people saying it would be really interesting to have yes, 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 all the science and yes, 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 kind of this interesting information you put out there, but we love to know about how you approach it personally, your day to day, what makes you good with horses, what makes you effective with them. We want to know those pieces, those mystery elements, kind of like the nuts and bolts pieces. So that's what people wanted, and that's what I wanted to write. And people also were approaching me then, people that over the years had worked with me, had said, please, we don't want it filtered. We don't want you to be like books that are out there. We just want something that's a little bit more personal, maybe a little shocking parts of it, and believe me, the first version was what much more shocking, personal, and how do you say, um, a much more direct. But I work with great editors who were able to mitigate that because we really did want it to be read by different genre people. It's supposed to be non-disciplinary. Non-disciplinary, yes. Not speaking to just one discipline. So whether you're a jumper, dressage, trail rider, I even had at my recent book signing, dog trainers come up and say they read the first one and they can't wait to read the second one because it impacted them so. So people's feedback to me was, we want to have your personal journey in this, and we don't want you too filtered, please. So say kind of like it is. So some of the ideas may not be popular, but they're honest and through classical. And that's what I wanted to leave with this particular book. A little bit of unfiltered, little raw, maybe a little bit, when people read it, it almost speaks to your relationships in life, maybe with other people, with like a guide with your dog or with your partner.
And one of the things I liked when I was reading it was sometimes I could see myself in the stories, like the problems that the horses you were working with, I've experienced working with horses myself. And so that's a nice connection to be able to read, like, oh, and this is how Maria, you solved this problem, or how you would address it.
And if I do a follow-up book, Isaac, it would be something like that. I have so many tales and stories of case studies around horses. That's sometimes very helpful. And that's the feedback I've been getting too from people. Like, I hear what you guys want and I try to produce that. This time, though, age and wisdom have helped me understand something about book writing that maybe I didn't understand when I was younger. And that is that, um, you know, this thing is concrete, it's tangible, it's going to be here for a long time. um, and so there's a responsibility that you have when you release something like this, and for me I needed it to be something that I could be proud of too, and not just a marketing tool, because putting books out there without any, so everything from the cover, the photos, down to certain wording was very, very consciously thought out. So that the fact that you would have it in your house, the fact that you have it sitting in your barn, increases the valiance, the emotional frequency, raises the bar just by having it. That's kind of like, when you have the Bible sitting in your house somewhere, kind of like that. I wanted that kind of quality to it. So separate from the words, separate from what you get in reading it, just holding it should raise your vibration. And I, even down to the woman I chose to be the photographer, the photos are even very well positioned to allow your mind, even if you flip through, for example, and you said, oh, this has nothing to do with me. I have absolutely nothing to do with this woman, this dressage stuff. I'm a jumper. The idea would be that you would be flipping through the pages. And as you do, the photographs, they're kind of non-denominational. You see a woman walking around with a horse, you're not sure where they're going, you're not sure what they're doing. So you start to, your right brain, the right brain part of us starts to engage in that process. So you start to wonder where they're going to go, what they're going to do. And in that way, you start to wonder. And wonder is a wonderful thing. To wonder is a wonderful thing with horses, because that right brain activity is something we're not used to having. We're predominantly left brain. We're coming out of jobs or kind of responsibilities to do all day. So, in order to get into the mindset of someone who's able to uh, hear a horse, the whisper of a horse, to slow down our brain. That's what I wanted the photos to evoke, to literally change the brain chemistry, electromagnetic chemistry of your brain as you flip through it. So you start to wonder what's happening, the nuances, versus flipping through a picture and getting bogged down with, oh, her leg is too forward and her hand should be higher, and the things we do in critiquing ourselves and others in the horse space. And I wanted a book that was a little bit, for me, the philosophy is key, because if you don't have a philosophy around something, at least a baseline philosophy, that's really what drives your techniques. Like when you get stuck in a horse, what you do next can have 50 million permutations. I'll know your philosophy by the action that you make in that moment, and I'll know what your principles are behind that. So I wanted to offer that to people, a philosophy that has worked for not just me, but this is coming from centuries of people have been successful with horses, non-denominationally, but also to create a space when you're flipping through it, because it's a little dense, Isaac. It's a little heavy, It's written actually, the language is written for a third grader. So when I wrote it, it's with the intention that our brain, when we're a little childlike, can only read things when it's broken down in a childlike fashion. The average childlike reading would be of that of a third grader. So when you read it, it's not a very complicated book, but people, the feedback I've gotten from people is that it can be very um, complex. So the language is not complicated, but some of the things we're asked to think about, we try to escape, like that level of presence. And there's such a simplicity to it that it almost may seem to some people a little bit comical. But all the pieces that I put in there have been thought out, worked on for the last decade and a half, so that it speaks when you, it's an entirety. It's it's a good guide.
Yeah, and you can really see that as you're going through the book that it is so thought out. And I'll also add that I have it sitting on my coffee table because I was reading it, and this was a few months ago. And I had a friend come over and they picked up the book and they're like, "Oh, what's this about?" And like flipping through it, they were commenting how beautiful it is with the pictures in it and the printing quality.
Yes, so everything down. In fact, one of the little known facts about it, there's so many little nuances. I can walk you through some of them. They're kind of little mysteries of the book, which make it intriguing. But the the book itself, thinking of printing, was supposed to originally be printed in China.
Mhm.
That's where the editors were, that's where the relationship they had. It was reviewed by the Chinese governmental people and found that the word Dalai Lama showed up about 19 times. I think it was 9 times or 19 times, one of those. It was a
Mhm.
nine, and therefore banned from being printed in China. So we last minute had to reroute it so it was printed in Thailand.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the same qualities of the paper gloss, but it was very important to me that the quality of the paper, and it ended up that being printed in Thailand maybe was more in alignment with where we were coming from, and the editors and us, and putting it together at the end of the day. The other thing of it is, for example, even like see the photograph in the front.
Mhm.
Yeah, is me with my horse. He just passed away this year. It's been really, really heartbreaking for me. So this is kind of a little bit of a memory for me of him. I'm glad we were able to do this together. We partnered on this, Baba and I. But he's a Marwari stallion, and this was me. We did a photo. We were invited for a photo opportunity, a movie. I'm sorry, it was a movie, a set
Mhm.
thing we were in, and so we had one camera person kind of like here behind me. And then there was another one further down in the hill. So this is the same shot at a different angle. And and even that is for me was important. We really went back and forth with different covers, and I thought it was super, super important that people can appreciate how important it is, the word perspective, um, the perspective that we take. You change an angle and you see a whole other picture.
Mhm.
Same horse, same rider, different angle. And I wanted that to be like kind of the there's an unconscious theme running throughout the book. So to leave the reader, you, with that a fascination to be open to a different perspective of your horse in all of this and all that you do together, the perspective of your higher self, the part of you that wants to grow and continue to learn, the part of yourself separated from ego and achievement and left brain activity. I wanted that people start to wonder about that. So, you have Chinese, Thailand, and perspective is really at the end of the day key in being great with horses, I believe.
Another part of your philosophy really came from your upbringing in Greece. And I'd love for you to just like a little snippet of that now.
So we had guests from Greece 2 weeks ago here that stayed with me for 10 days, another trainer from northern Greece. And we were talking a little bit about this because uh, we have, all of us have, and I believe one of the things I write in here is that our connection to the horse is so timeless over centuries. And it's a very unique bond because you're having a creature that on its own is meant to, when it doesn't understand something, would either fight, flight. But we introduced the concept of friend, fight, flight, or friend. My ancestors, who needed the horse for battle, understood that 2,000 years ago. And if you read the first equestrian cavalry manual written, I read it in original because I've learned ancient Greek. The translations just don't quite cut it. But when you read it in its originality, it's amazing to see. We can disagree with a lot of things in there. You can't throw the baby with the bathwater. But when you read through this text, you see the amazing bond and consideration and respect for the horse as a comrade in those times. The horse needed to be functional because they were used. And so the level of consciousness around functionality meant that people had to explore ways to get along with horses. And so that was happening there. So there's an underbelly that we all inherit, whether from our ancestries, from our, if you believe in past lives or whatever your spiritual connection is, we have an underlying knowing how to be around horses. The key is to open that channel up because you get downloads of wisdom around what to do and how to be. And I think that the book introduces what I wanted to bring to the table are some philosophies that have endured through time. Because there's a lot of things our ancestors did that we can do better. There's some things we definitely know, let's just chuck away. Like putting burnt oil into your ear for an ear infection might not be the best thing. It, we do have other ways of doing this a little bit less painful. So how can we bring forward from the past these things that have endured through time and also invite people's consciousness to tap into your own stream of ancestral wisdom around horses, because we do have it. And I guarantee you, I've had people that have read this that said to me after, I don't remember the details. I know you talked about different details. What I was left with at the end was the sense that somebody opened the door and I was able to see love, compassion. The importance of some of these things that culturally were not encouraged to be. So people become motivated to see the horse differently, spend time differently. They're motivated to start looking at ways to make their horse more comfortable and what that means, getting the education to for example, assess lameness, soft lameness. A lot of people don't have the theory to do a lot of the work that they're doing. Saddle fitting. I can tell you how many times people are working horses in uncomfortable places unbeknownst to them because they don't have that education. So I always say the five things we as horse people should be aware of and keeping abreast of is things like ethology, learning theory, how horses learn, not just positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. How do they learn? What are those systems of learning in place that science has explained to us about mammalian learning? Biomechanics, um, rider position, things like that. There's some five basic things that we should have under our belt theoretically. And many of us continue to learn that. Some people, because of ego, stop learning at a certain point because they decide they know everything. So this book kind of opens you up to that, yes, there's a lot of things in the past that we can move forward, but there's just so many things that we need to continue to aspire to learn to make our connection to the continue to be a friend for our horse. Let's just put it that way. And
Mhm.
so my ancestry, we grew up with a heavy tradition, respect for horses because of the, especially around the antiquities, Alexander the Great. There's a lot of legends, a lot of myths around horses So I talk a lot about that in the book, my journey and respect for that.
And where can people get a copy? I know it goes, this book is for people regardless of discipline. Even if you don't regularly ride horses or engage with horses, you can get something out of it. But where should they go to buy a copy?
It definitely can go to Amazon right now that it's available, and we have, I believe, in this hard copies in the US, Canada, Mexico, I believe, and then outside of the US, we do have it in a Kindle version available on Amazon.
Excellent. Okay, Maria, what was your process to getting this book started? I know writer's block can be such a huge hurdle to overcome. I have so much to say, but I won't even know where to begin. How did you go about that?
So a lot of people actually ask me that question. They say, how do you start a book? Where do you begin? Because there's so many people I meet, they have a lot of things to say in this world, and they just get stuck. Including, by the way, when I did my dissertation, my doctorate, there was something called the status of ABD, all but dissertation. So you have people that have finished the majority of their education, academics, much of their practicum experiences. And one of the requirements to get your doctorate is, of course, a dissertation. So, and generally, depending on the program, not only do you have to produce a dissertation, but some programs actually then require you to submit a version of it to be published in a peer-reviewed journal. So that's a really that's a book that you're that's dissertation is a book. So you're writing something. In many cases, you have to sample people and do the statistics, which I did, and it's a very very tedious process, and people get stuck and this all but dissertation stage because of the writing. So they may have all the data collected for the project, so they have all the statistics done. They've collected everything, but then you have to sit down and write this thing, and they don't know where to go. Most people get stuck is because, again, we're left brain people and we're very linear. So if you can start accessing the right part of your brain, you'll start to find that we get stuck because we feel like we have to sit down and write. Instead, what I would do is every day I would take say, an article that had something to do with what I was doing. I need a reference. So I had collected maybe the size of a 3-year-old child, a list of reference articles that were going to be speaking to my subject case. And then I would simply every day summarize or paraphrase a portion of that and just write it on, just type it in and cite it and paraphrase what I needed. And by the end of the week, that 3-year-old child size of pile of abstracts that I had were now 10 pages. So now you have a natural motivation. The same way with this book here. If I sat and said, today I'm going to write, chances are nothing would happen. But instead, what I would do is, lucky for us, we have iPhones and smartphones and technology. And what I would do is during a lesson, somebody would ask me a question, and it would be a great question. And I would audio tape it. I said, can you ask me that question again? And I would answer it. And if a student had a bunch of questions, I had one student that was shadowing me for the summer, and she would just ask question after question, and we literally transcribed all her questions. So this book is literally a compilation of all the questions over the course of, say, 5 years that people have asked, and then just filler information to support that. So every day that I would finish, I had at least 10 or 15 recordings. Now, I didn't sit down and try to make sense of them. I simply transcribed it. So I had pages and pages of documentation. So that's very motivating. Then there's something in front of you that you can see. And from there, I could just then remove parts of the ones and filter out information that was redundant, information that was not going to be useful. And over the course of 5 years, then start to inject more of a structure to it. But if I started trying to be structured about it, I would have never finished it. So some people really, for them, they enjoy a timeline, blueprint of sorts. My blueprint came after just kind of the questions and starting to see how this evolved, then I was able to put more of a structure to it. So people work in different ways, but that's my process. I tend to be a little circular, Mediterranean. So we just kind of start to talk and meander someplace else. But the definitely the plan came along the way. But I needed to see that I had something jotted on paper in order to get motivated, because it's very easy to get lost between the working every day, the elements outside, um, just running a barn full time. It's hard to find the time to sit and write things down. And I know very great people, people that have a lot to say, that do get bogged down with the day to day. Find the time, even if it's 5 minutes. Have somebody ask you a question, tape it, transcribe it, and just cut and paste it. With today's technology, we have that. Back in the day when I did my dissertation, it was all word processors. So we have it a lot easier today, and can really put out information in a beautiful, meaningful way.
Okay, well, Maria, it was wonderful to connect with you today, and I'm looking forward to getting to talk to you later this week.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you.